Hi you guys, so I wanted to do a video from start to finish. I'm going to be glittering this cup for myself. I haven't worked with a cup that had these ridges in it before, so we'll see how it goes. But this is just a cup for my personal use, so I thought it'd be a good one to do start to finish. There are a ton of videos and tutorials out there, but when I was looking through them, I found that I had to look through a ton of them in order to find exactly what I was looking for or answer all of the questions that I had as I was doing a cup. I'm going to paint this white, and the reason I'm using the paint, I mean it's easy enough versus spray paint, is that we live in a very cold state in the winter, so I'm not going to go outside and spray paint this. Instead I'm just going to use the craft paint. The glitter that I'm using is going to be a white glitter, so that's why I'm painting it white. A lot of times I don't paint it at all. I just use glitter right on top of the stainless. So I'm going to tape it off with my electrical tape first. And like I said, I wanted to do it start to finish so that you know, the questions that I had, other people probably had too. So that's why we're doing this. And this cup that I'm using isn't, like I said, it's not a normal cup. So I have been not taping lately and just using or just epoxying and glittering from top to bottom, but this cup has a different bottom, so I decided to tape it off. So I'm going to straighten out this tape here. Alright, and then give myself a little lip if I get this tape straight. Okay. There, and I've got a little tab. Okay, so I'm just using a foam brush to roll this on, or roll it on. I'm using a foam brush to paint this on. I did give this a once over with acetone just to clean it a little bit, but since I'm painting it, it probably wouldn't have needed to be, but I wanted to give it a good start. Okay, so I gave this a good once over coat with the white paint. Now the one thing that you could do prior to that I didn't do is sand the cup just lightly. If I'm not going to paint it, then I definitely would have given it a light sand so that the Mod Podge sticks to it. Because I can see, like, with these little streaks, that's what the Mod Podge does too. So giving it a little sand prior to does help, but with this paint, that's giving the Mod Podge something to stick to. So alright, we'll let that dry. Once it's dry, we'll go to the next step. Alright, so my paint has dried and now I'm ready to Mod Podge. I can't always say that right. I'm going to take my tape off and I'm going to retape it, just to get a nice clean line in there, just because it's not 100% straight. So then that way I'll be able to Mod Podge and put the glitter on and not see that messed up paint line. Okay, so I'm using the Mod Podge hard coat. So I've seen different people use different things. There's different methods. You can use epoxy for your glitter coat, but I'm using the Mod Podge. So I do have it ready here. What I'm going to do, because I usually have a tough time getting enough Mod Podge on before it starts drying. So what I'm going to do is put it on with gloved hands, and then brush it with my paintbrush to get the extra off and make it smooth lines. So just kind of spread it on as quickly as possible, and then we're going to brush it off. And here with this cup, like I said before, I'm really going to pay attention to these grooved lines, just to make sure that that gets covered, because I have not done a cup like this before. So we'll see. Since this is just for me, it's not as big of a deal. Okay. Alright, so I got it covered, and now I'm going to take off this glove so I can use the brush. And then I'm just going to come down. When you paint it white like this, it's really hard to see if you're covering. So that's another nice thing for the glove is that you actually know that you kind of have it good and covered. Now the other thing you can do prior to putting the Mod Podge on is make sure your glitter and everything is all set up, because this stuff dries really quickly. So I'm just going to go over it a little bit more. You don't want any streaks. So you work as fast as you can, but as accurately as you can. Try not to get any clumps of it. And make sure everything is covered. Any streaks that you have in here, the glitter will show that. So nice and even. Okay, then move this stuff aside. I'm going to get out my glitter. I'm using the Recollections Glitz for my glitter. So just going to go at the top and go all the way to the bottom. This one's going to be a little bit harder to cover because it's white glitter, but having the paint white will help. Or the cup white, I should say. Painting it white first will help. The other reason I don't mind taping it off is because then you have the bottom to kind of tap it with. So if you can see there, I just quickly covered the entire cup, and I can go back through and look to see if I have any missed spots or any chunkiness. Like I see a missed spot right up here, so I'm just going to take a little bit of Mod Podge and touch that up. See if I can point that a little more towards you guys. Alright. Come on up, glitter. Okay. And I am using the football PVC pipe here to hold it, which is nice. And just touch up all these little edges here. That glitter is really pretty. Okay, so if I see any more imperfections here, I'll just touch those up a little bit. Like I see one down here. Just a little bit of a line. But I have to be careful because if I put too much Mod Podge on, it'll clump the glitter, which it kind of did there. So see if I... Okay. Something weird in my glitter right here. Like an orange speck. I'm just going to tap that down a little bit. Okay, so then I'm going to wait like 30 minutes to an hour for this to completely dry. I might go ahead and clean up a little bit of the edge to make sure that I'm not got a lot of glitter on the lip there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this tape. Some people peel it right away, some people wait, and I've done both. Usually I forget to peel it, but if you peel it right away, then you usually get a little bit better of a line. So I'm going to peel it now, and then I'm going to clean up any spots, and we'll retape it before we do our next coat. So I'm seeing I'm pulling it at an angle there too. Okay, there we go. Another nice thing about not taping that bottom is having something to set it on here too. So that's nice. So I'm going to go ahead and put my glitter back in from the paper into my tub, and then we'll wait for that to dry, and then we'll do the next step. All right, so our first coat of glitter is dry, and I've retaped, and then what I'm going to do is brush off any loose glitter. So that way, when I apply the next coat of glitter, it won't be clump. I keep saying glumpy, but it won't be clumpy. All right, so once you get all that glitter off, we're ready for the next coat of glitter. Or I should say Mod Podge and then glitter. So I put the Mod Podge in one of these little cups. I just got these cups at Walmart. They come with the lids, which is kind of nice. Oh my gosh, you guys, everything has glitter. But that's normal, right? So that way, in between my Mod Podge, it's not drying out. So there's that. I'm going to get a paper towel for my brush, because once you start going over this, you might get a little bit of clumped glitter. So this time I'm not going to use my gloved hand, but I'm just going to try to put it on quickly with the brush. So try to get this on quick and even. These smooth surfaces obviously are a little bit easier to do. These little ridges, I'm having to make sure that I'm getting enough in there. And with the glitter on there, it's very porous, so it's soaking it all in. And it's a matter of trying to work quickly and get everything covered. And I think I might actually dump some of this on here a little bit quicker. And you can always do touch-ups, but it's a lot easier just to get it done the first time. It is really soaking up the Mod Podge. Which is more of, I find more of an issue when I'm doing multiple colors. Since it's all one color, it's a little bit easier to touch up. But it is still really soaking up the glitter. So we're going to keep applying this around the cup. Alright, so back to the glitter. I did switch my glitters because this one was a little bit pink, so I went with a little bit lighter one. It's still quite dark, but we're just going to go. And it's inevitable that I get glitter all over the place. do the best that I can to just conserve as much glitter. So I'm going to reuse a lot of this glitter, but it's all over my table even though I have it down. And I only had a little bit of this whiter glitter, so, or I should say less pink. Otherwise, it's a lot easier just to use it all and not have to, like, you know, reuse while you're glittering. And the white is harder to see, but you try to do your best just to get everything covered. The second coat is a little bit easier to see of the Mod Podge than the first coat. So let's see how we did there. Alright, so looks like I got everything covered. Usually what you're looking for is any missed spots at the top or on the bottom, but looks pretty good. Okay, as I'm going through, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in the little bucket in case I have anything to touch up. And then I will clean up and let that dry. Okay, so this looks pretty good. What I'm going to do now is just pull that tape very carefully, my little tab, and I'm going to pull it away. And then I'm going to clean up edges. You can clean it up with a little bit of acetone. But just be very careful not to move your glitter. So there we go. So I'm going to clean up these edges. Like you can see a little bit of glue that got on here, Mod Podge, a little bit of tape residue, but just a little bit of acetone on a makeup sponge will help a lot with that. Okay, so I've got a little bit of acetone here. These little bottles are awesome when you're working with acetone, so that you can just literally pump it and get that up. This is just a makeup sponge. It's not the best quality, it's a little flimsy, so I usually try to fold it over and use it that way, but just a little cleanup right on the edge, and that will help. You know, if you clean up your edges as you go along, you're going to have a lot less issues moving forward. Some just little pieces I'm going to move in here with my fingernail, and then clean that up again with the acetone. Just a little bit on the side of the cup, or I should say the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, and once that's dry, we'll be ready for our first coat of epoxy. This one, there's a lot of differing opinions on whether you need to seal your glitter coat. I don't seal often, again, partly because we're in cold weather right now, so it's really hard to do a clear coat of spray paint outside. And when you have one color glitter, it's not as necessary to clear coat it, because the glitter's not gonna bother anything if it moves around. So once it dries, I'll move right on to the epoxy step. So alright, we'll let that dry. Okay, you guys, so I moved over to the table where I have my turner, and I have my second coat of glitter that has dried. I'm going to brush off any extra glitter, and I have retaped my cup as well. So I'm just gently brushing off this extra glitter anything that comes off so that it doesn't clump. Again, I know I've said that a couple times. Okay, and then I've retaped the bottom. I left a tiny sliver of silver there that I want my epoxy to go into. So just when I taped, I left that little bit there. Okay. So now I'm going to mix my epoxy. I use the Amazing Clear Cast. I know there's a lot of different epoxies out there that you can use. This is the one that I've used, and I don't have a whole lot of issues with it. It works real well for me. So for right now, you know, this is what I'm using. I have pre-measured out my A and B. I have those here. So I'm going to pour the thicker one into the thinner, and then I'm going to stir. I have 2 stir sticks ready. Plus I'm going to get a paper cup to pour them into. So my thicker one's going to go into the thinner, and I'm going to get every drop that I can out of this thicker cup. Again, you just want to use equal parts of the A and the B, and then you are going to mix slowly together. Okay, so it will start out, once you start mixing, it will look cloudy. Once it turns clear again, then you are ready to go. So I scrape the sides and I scrape the bottom, and I just stir slowly, popping any bubbles as they come, and I just take my time with it. So this is all I'm doing, just stirring, making sure that I get all of the sides, wiping off my stick every once in a while, and re-stirring. Okay, so here you see, if you can see, this is back to clear again. And so that's what we want. We just stirred gently, slowly. There's still quite a bit of bubbles in here, like not big bubbles, but little bubbles. So we'll try to get rid of some of those. But so this is what you want it to look like. And what we're going to do now is we're going to transfer it into another cup, and I'm going to use a different stir stick. So I'm going to throw that one away. And I just got these at the dollar store. We have a Dollar Tree here, but these were just $1 for a big pack of them. So I'm going to pour that into another cup. And by doing that, by pouring it, you do get rid of some of the bubbles. So that helps. I'm not going to scrape the sides because I don't want to scrape anything that wasn't mixed. So I'm just going to dump this in here as is. I'm going to stir it a little bit more, and then I'm going to let it rest just for a minute while I'm setting up my turner. Okay, now another thing you can do to kind of prep it a little bit is to use a heat gun. I'm just using the embossing gun. Some people use an actual heat gun that they get at maybe Harbor Freight or Lowe's, something like that. But I'm just going to blast it a little bit to give it a little heat, try to pop those little air bubbles. Okay, so this is my turner. I'll try to show a little bit more of it here. I've got lights all over the place because I work down in the basement, so I've got like 2 reading lamps and an aught light. I've got all sorts of things. Anyway, this is how I set up my turner. Or I'm not very handy, so I ordered the rotisserie turner and then just mounted it on a wooden crate, and then that way everything that you see in the box is just storage. So it's not the most efficient design from, you know, like for those that have cut their poles. They cut their poles and made them shorter. It's not a space-saving design, but this was very easy for me to do, being not handy. So I just used some electrical tape around the turner to fill up the space between the PVC pipe and the rotisserie. Okay, so we are set up and ready to put our first coat of epoxy on. I'm just going to turn my spinner on, or my turner, and make sure that my cup is level. Okay, so I just use a gloved hand to put the epoxy on. I just start pouring and I try to rub as I go. I like the drips when it comes off. I hate wasting any epoxy, so that always kills me, but we'll do our best here. I try to get this on as fast and evenly as I can, although you don't really have to be super fast because it doesn't dry super fast, but like I said, I don't like to have I don't like to waste any of the drips, so my finger even drips. It's best to go one direction for less air bubbles, but I find myself just trying to catch everything. Sorry, my rotisserie is making a high-pitched squeal. With your finger, you can feel where you have not applied epoxy, so just try to get everything covered here. This one, I feel like I do not have enough epoxy. It's like I never make the right amount. But we're just going to keep spreading and see how it all works out. I used 15 milliliters of A and B in my epoxy, but I pre-measured, and so I might not have actually, I might have thought I was using 15, but maybe not actually. So I'm going to start bumping up how much I use in the future. But then again, when I bump up how much I use, it never fails that I then make way too much and have a ton left over. So we'll just keep spreading. I kind of end up with a lot on my finger, so I definitely try to bring that back down and use that, or I will rub it off on a cup like this and then reapply. I am not going to have any left over to drizzle, but see if I can find some. Usually if I have left over, then I drizzle it over the top once I kind of get the whole cup covered, and then let the turner do its work and spread it evenly. The other thing I'm finding is that some of the epoxy is sitting in these little ridges, so I'm making sure that I'm getting that. It's still feeling pretty rough, so I definitely could have used some more epoxy. But what I'll do is I'll drizzle this on there and give it another smoothing, and then I can always sand and take care of the epoxy in the next round. Worst case scenario, I have mixed up some more epoxy real quick, yet we all know that there's no real quick way of mixing up epoxy, because you do want to stir it slowly and make sure it sets up nicely, because if you don't get it mixed up, you're going to end up with a tacky cup that just won't dry. So there's nothing quick about it, but worst case scenario, like I said, I have mixed up more epoxy. I want to make sure that I'm coating the seam really well, and then also the lip. So I might drizzle a little bit of this right up at the lip. I don't want to make the lip really thick. Okay, come on. Maybe I don't have enough to... I don't want to make it thick, but I want the glitter covered up on the lip. And then before we're done here, I will clean up the extra epoxy that might have gotten over the lip. And this is going to spin overnight, and then we'll check on it in the morning and finish our steps. I'm just going to take a look at it from different levels, so especially with the different lights that I've got pointed at it, it helps to kind of get down on different levels with it and see that, you know, make sure you didn't miss anything. Because you can fix it now if you need to. And what you're trying to do is get a good base for your decals. Okay, I ended up mixing up a little bit more epoxy so that I could coat this. It would have worked out fine the other way too, but I would have had a lot of sanding to do, so I'm just going to give it some more epoxy. And I can do that since it's still wet, but it's going to turn out so much better. So even on these smaller cups, they still take a lot of epoxy. And it seems like no two are alike. Like this glitter wants to absorb every ounce of epoxy that I have, where other glitters it didn't seem to take that much, so that's alright. That's feeling much better now. And I don't want to like necessarily saturate it where now I've got epoxy all over the place, but whereas your you'll see drips coming off of it, but I want to coat it well enough that I'm giving it a good base. And now when I run my finger over, I'm not feeling a lot of that glitter, so that's good. And there I caught myself going the opposite way, but I didn't want to push all of that epoxy over the edge, so just trying to be careful of that. I'm still catching lots of drips on my paper, but that's okay because I feel like this is better coverage in the end, so that's good. Now if I had some earrings to make, that would be good use of this extra epoxy. But sadly, I do not have any earrings to make. And I think I'm definitely going to drizzle some of this at the bottom of the cup. I feel a little bit more roughness at the bottom. I want to make sure that I've got this lid covered too, and then I'll go back and I'll clean that up. I'm just going to run my finger over it here. And since I'm not epoxying the bottom of the cup, I don't have to worry about the bottom. This top still feels a little bit rough, so I'm going to catch that too. But I'm going to drizzle a little bit here. Try to get a small drizzle. Oof, I've got just epoxy dripping over my hands, over everywhere. And then again, you're going to look for any spots that you missed before you are done with your epoxy. Before I made the second batch of epoxy, I could see some of the glitter pieces sticking up, and now I can't, so I think that's much better coverage. I still see one or two here or there, but it's not as bad. And this lip still is a little rough. Alright, just giving it a once over. I do see some glitter that's sticking up, but that I can fix with some sandpaper, so that's not a big deal. I always hate to take my glove off because then usually I'll see something and I'll need to put a glove back on. I'm not hypersensitive to the epoxy, but I still prefer to wear a glove. Besides the fact that it's a sticky mess. And then I'll watch it for a little bit for any big clumps or drips. Because sometimes, even though I try to get my cup level on the turner, it might not be 100% level, so. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to clean up any drips, because if I don't, they're going to end up on my clothes. I just use baby wipes for cleanup. The only bad thing about these is that they leave kind of like a lint, so I don't love them. But and then what I'm going to grab is just this makeup sponge and my acetone, and we're just going to clean this up a little bit. I'm going to clean up just the inside of the cup, and I'm just placing the makeup sponge right on the inside and letting it turn. See if I can do that over here. and getting off any epoxy that landed on the inside of the cup. And then I'm also going to try to clean up the bottom of the cup a little bit, just because I got a little overzealous with the poly, or I call it poly, but epoxy. Okay, and then pulling tape, you wait maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Some people pull it right away. I put a lot of epoxy on here, so I'm going to wait just a little bit, but then I'll pull it, and then I'll do another round of cleanup with the makeup sponge. Okay, we let that run overnight. Like I said, the next step would be to wait 30 to 45 minutes and to take off this tape just like we did before. You're pulling it up at an angle, and then we will let this run overnight. Before we go, I almost forgot, I do run my embossing gun over to pop any bubbles. With this glitter, I can't see a whole lot of bubbles, but I'm sure that they are there. So I'm just going to go over it lightly in a sweeping motion to try to get rid of some of those bubbles. There. Alright. It's so hard to tell with white glitter if everything is covered, but it looks like it is to me, so we're going to go with that. And that's it for this step. Okay, so I took the tumbler off of the turner, and it is all dry. There are plenty of rough spots though, so we're going to sand down. But otherwise I think it looks really good. The darker spots are definitely in the creases here, but I still think it looks good. So I'm just going to go ahead and sand it. So I'm using 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to spray it down a little bit just to wet it before I sand. And then I'm going to just find all the little rough patches, the little pieces of glitter that are sticking out, and sand those down. And it's okay to kind of, I don't push real hard, but it's okay to sand it. You know, you're not going to ruin it. You could get through the layer of epoxy and get down to your glitter, but I have never gotten that far down. So I just give it a good sanding all the way through. Okay, so once I have it sanded down and I feel like it's smooth all around, I just give it a little spray with the water again and kind of wipe off all this residue. Find any extra spots that might need sanding. You might find that it's still, like I have some patches, it's really hard to see on the white, but I have some patches that are still a little bumpy, but that's okay because our epoxy is going to fill that in. Now if it's a rough spot or if you feel anything poking up, definitely sand some more. But otherwise all of that will be covered up with the epoxy. So just going to spray it down, wipe it down. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, like I said, feel if there's any more rough spots. It seems pretty good to me. I did the top pretty good because that's usually where I find the rough spots. And then the bottom edge too had some rough spots. So I'm going to take a clean cloth with some acetone and wipe it down again just to get all of the different sandpaper residue off of it and give it a nice good finish for the next coat of epoxy to seal on. Now I see there's a lot of people who ask questions about the epoxy pulling away when you pour it on the cup, and I have had that happen. I have found that either it's due to heat, like your room is not warm enough, or in my case, I think it was the fingerprints. So any oil from your hand that gets on these cups is not going to help the epoxy seal. So keep that in mind. You know, after you get through all this, you might want to put on a pair of gloves just to keep the epoxy or keep the oil from your hands off of your cup. Using the football turner or the football PVC pipe is very helpful, but even then it's still hard to grab it and not get oil on it. So okay, next step is just going to be to put the my decals on. Now I went ahead and print these out or cut these on my silhouette. I'm making it a baseball cup, so I've got Baseball Mom, and then I have two of the baseball stitches. So I've got that. I'm not exactly sure where I want them placed, the baseball stitches, but I do know where I want my regular Baseball Mom. I just want the Baseball Mom like in the middle here. So I'm gonna look, this cup did not have the embossed logo, so I just want to pick a side. You know, that makes sense, but they're all looking pretty even, so I don't think it matters a whole lot where I put it. Okay. So I use a couple different transfer tapes. This one, I don't even know where I got it from, but I saw it there, and I've been having trouble with my other transfer tape not pulling the vinyl up, so I switched to this one. We'll see how this one goes, and this one also has the lines on it, so you can try to you know, have an easier time lining up your design. And when the cups have these indents, it's a little bit easier to line them up too. But place it where you want it, and then usually make sure that that's straight. I go from the middle out, and this one's pretty easy. And then look at me, I didn't wear gloves, so now I'm getting my fingerprints on this cup. So okay, and you can take your tool here too and rub that on, and then you just grab a corner and gently peel back. Usually I don't have too much of an issue with with the decal sticking to the cup, so, but I'm just pulling kind of real closely, that way if something doesn't stick I can go back over it, you know, seal it, and then peel again. Oh, that looks really cool. I love how the red is looking against the white. Now I'm just gonna figure out where I want these stitches to go. And I want one on each side, but I don't know if I want just to wrap around so you can see them. So I'm just kind of playing with that. And it's just a trick to see where you want them to go. And it's truly just going to be eyeballed. Okay. So I think I want it to kind of go here, maybe at the end of the L, and then up. And kind of placing it in the little divots of this cup too, so kind of taking special care around that. See how that went. And then you'll definitely want to go through, especially on if there's any creases or divots in the cup, and make sure that everything is sealed down. Yeah, that looks, the red looks really cool on the white. I like how that looks. So I'm just gonna make sure everything is pushed down. And then I'm gonna do it on the other side. So since I did kind of the end of the L here, I'm gonna kind of go the end of the B over here. See if my cup won't roll away while I'm trying to place this. I just need to try to figure out the right angle here. Just gonna stick it there and see. I think that's about right. And again, just placing it really good on your cup so that when your epoxy goes over, it's not leaking underneath or seeping underneath your design. And then going back through, if there's any spots that maybe have an extra air bubble in them, you can try to peel up your vinyl a little bit and replace it. So I'm just getting out this little line here. I think this looks pretty good. So there's my baseball mom and the baseball stitches on the back. I think the placement worked out pretty good on that. All right, so now I'm going to retape off the bottom. I'm going to leave just the hair of the silver again so that I make sure to kind of clean up my, I can clean up my epoxy line that way, and also make sure that it's getting a good seal around the glitter. So, and before I do that, I'm going to clean it up one more time with the with acetone. I'm just being careful around my design here, but I want to get all my fingerprints and finger oils or whatever, oils from my fingers off of the cup before I do that. So, okay, so then we're all set to put on another coat of epoxy, and I'm going to get that mixed up and get us ready to go. Okay, so I went ahead and mixed up my epoxy and I got it pretty clear. So now I'm going to pour it into my second cup. And I'm going to mix it a little bit in this cup with a new stir stick. And then I'm ready to apply it to my cup. I used 20 milliliters of each part A and part B so that I had enough epoxy. I don't want to run out. I probably won't need that all, but I wanted to make sure I didn't have to mix more while I'm going. I'm not scraping the cups or the cup, so I'm just going to stir a little bit more slowly and then let it sit for a little bit while I get my turner going. Okay, I've got everything ready to go and I'm ready to apply. I'm just going to, actually I'm going to heat this just a little bit to try to get rid of some of the bubbles. All right. At first I might go in a couple different directions to get it covered, and then I'm just going to go in one direction to try to reduce any air bubbles. And now I'm just going to look at it from different angles, make sure that everything is covered well. And I do have some epoxy left over, so I'll probably drizzle a little bit of this on to make sure everything is good. I just really want to make sure that this lip is not rough. So I think I'll drizzle some on up there. Come on. A little too much, but sometimes it's hard to get a drizzle. Then we can just watch to make sure that there's nothing pooling anywhere, like no big blotches of epoxy pooling. I did add that extra drizzle on it, so I'll make sure that that is leveling out. And then once I make sure it's all leveled out and ready to go, I'm going to clean it up a little bit and then use the epoxy, or not epoxy, the embossing gun to heat it, or your heat gun, to try to pop a little bit of bubbles. And the only bubbles that you can really see is on the decal itself. So we'll try to concentrate in those areas and see what we can get to pop. Again, I'm just going to take my acetone and a little makeup sponge and get off any extra epoxy that I don't want sticking. So basically, like, the inside of the cup would be where I'd want to concentrate, or if any got on this bottom area. So I'm just going to hold this sponge right on the inside of the cup and let it turn. Just some light pressure. And that will clean up any of the epoxy that you don't want sticking. I do want the epoxy on the upper lid just to make sure that it is sealing in the glitter. So I want to make sure not to take off that epoxy, but okay, and then I'm going to go around one more time to get any extra goop and just kind of clean it up a little bit. And the same reason that I leave a little silver at the bottom is to make sure that the epoxy is getting a good seal around the glitter. Okay, so then again with the tape, we'll wait a little bit to take that off, maybe 30 minutes or so while this is turning. Oh, I forgot my heat gun, so we're gonna do that real quick. Okay, too much heat and your epoxy is gonna start to run. So you don't want to give it too much, but just enough to maybe pop a few of those bubbles. Other people have used torch guns or the heat gun, like from Harbor Freight. I mentioned that earlier. But so far this has worked okay for me. But I might get like the torch gun in the future just to help, because I do see some bubbles still around on top of the decal. So, all right, so enough time has passed. I'm just going to carefully tear away the tape, and remember to go at an angle. Wait for my turner to go around here. And then I will do one more cleanup with my makeup sponge and the acetone. So I'm going to take a clean sponge and my acetone and just run that along that line to clean that up a little bit. And where that tape run, that's usually, or where the two ends of the tape meet. Okay, I think that looks good. Now, one thing that I do also do, I carefully set a clear tub over the top and rest it right on here, so that it's not on anything that turns and it's not interfering with the lug nut that is turning around here. But that way it protects it just a little bit from any dust or hair. And with the furnace going, blowing the air around, just something over the top of it that might keep it a little bit more clear from debris and hair and dust, so that doesn't settle in my epoxy. So I will put that on, and then we'll wait for this to cure, and it should be good to go because it looks beautiful. Okay, so I let it sit for a good 6 to 8 hours. I can't remember when I finished it, and let it start turning, but it is now dry. And you can tell the difference between when it's still needing to cure a little bit more, because it would be tacky, but it's not tacky at all. So it is ready to come off the turner, but I'm just trying to give you a little bit of an idea of what that glitter looks like. It's hard to see on camera, but it's really pretty. It's got a bunch of different iridescence in it. I'm glad that I put the white in there versus the glitz that had more of the dominant pink color, because this one turned out really good with the baseball mom design. So it needs to sit for 72 hours or 3 days, and then it's ready to be used. So there you go. It is all finished. I hope this helped you do your own glitter tumblers. If you have decided not to do a glitter tumbler but would like to purchase one, I can definitely link my page where you can purchase your own custom-made tumbler. Otherwise, if you would like to try them on your own, I will put some links, helpful links in the description below. Thanks for watching, everyone, and happy crafting!